Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm Jumbo Jems here with you today, and today we'll be drawing my dream Squishmallows. So these are some fan-made Squishmallows, little bean guys that I would love to see, love to own. So first off, we're starting off with Garfield, my personal favorite. I put the best one at the beginning and then the second best one at the end, but to be honest, all three are very cute. And as I'm sure you can see by the title, there might be a few little spoilers about what's coming up next. But Garfield, God, what a sweetie. This first sketch looks a little cursed because of how I've drawn the eyes, but I promise he won't look so scary. At the moment he looks like that one picture of the AliExpress Garfield. I'll put a photo up here. But yeah, so we're just moving on to the more detailed sketch, getting kind of the shapes and the details and the placement good before we do our line art. And I'm trying to draw his little feet, but they look terrifying. They look so creepy. So I'm just going with standard little squish feet. Now I know Garfield is kind of like super well loved, including by me, but there seems to be this like very obsessed fan base about Garfield, and including me. My friends have always been like, I don't really understand, like it's just a comic of a weird little cat and his weird little owner. But I just want to give you some fun facts about how popular Garfield really is. So Garfield merchandise brings in between $750 million to $1 billion annually for Paws Inc. Supposedly, I got that online. Garfield also holds the Guinness World Record for being the world's most widely syndicated comic strip. So it is the biggest comic strip ever of all time, being syndicated in many newspapers and more digital means today. There are 73 Garfield comic books, which are just big compilations of the daily 3-panel strips, and I owned 3 of them as a kid. National Garfield Day is June 19th, and there's only 3 countries in the world where Garfield isn't called Garfield. So it's not regionally changed like a lot of media, especially Pokemon, are. So in Sweden, Norway, and Finland, his name is Gustav instead of Garfield, which I think is pretty cute. So I'm just lining our little Garfy here, making sure he has those 3 whisker dots, and then playing around with how I want the eyelids to look. He always has quite low eyelids. He always looks a bit sleepy, a bit sly. So now I'm just moving on to the whiskers, his 3 little whiskers that come off the top of his head instead of his cheeks. And then our line art should almost be done. Now I'm trying out a new technique with my drawing where I expand the line art, as you can see here in grey, and then just keeping the very outmost border of it and then merging it later. So this should hopefully make the outside line art a bit fuller than the inside line art, and you can see the results here, and I'm just going to start colouring him in. So I think with the darker, thicker outline on the outside kind of gives it a bit more character and dimension. As much as I love pressure sensitivity with drawing, when I'm doing kind of small stickers or like small cartoony pictures like this, I don't really like the outline inconsistency, so I think it just gives a nice extra oomph to the drawing. And yeah, so it's a little bit time consuming, but let me know what you think. I think it makes it just a little bit more interesting to look at. Just filling in the last of his colours. We've got his nose left. Garfield is a pretty simple design, and I think that's why it's so universally liked. You know, it's unique in its art style, very chubby with really like weird whiskers and eyes for proportion wise, but he is very cute, and I think a squishmallow of him would be awesome. I also saw online that there might be a Garfield pillow pet coming out, so if that does come out, you know I'll definitely be getting one, or maybe two. Give one for my cats and one for me. So I'm just doing his kind of black accents. I've chosen kind of a browny grey colour instead of black, just so that there's a bit more contrast with the line art. I will be changing the colour of the line art in the future. So just doing his little squiggles. And then finally, we have his Garfield Squishmallow. Now moving on to Eevee. I'm starting off with the same Squishmallow bean shape, just for the rough sketch here. We've got the big voluptuous tail, little feeties, cute little smile, and those iconic eyes. And then just adding a neck fluff. I thought it was missing that. Obviously it could just be printed on, but I thought like a little add-on fluff would look just too cute to resist. And then moving those arms down so they're below the neck fluff as well. Moving on to my more detailed sketch, just getting a bit more fluff in that neck and the point to make sure that it's still consistent with the original design, with some cute little triangular pointy ears. Honestly, I think doing a whole page of the Eeveelution Squishmallows would be cute. So I'll add that to my list. I just wanted to focus on my 3 dream Squishmallows for now. My little fan art squishies. So now that the detailed sketch is done, I'll move on to the line art. So it's pretty standard, you know, we got the pointy ears, and I'm just quickly jumping over to the fluff. I'm sort of doing what would be considered top down, so the ears in front, and then the fluff on his neck, and then the body, and then the tail and the behind ear. So obviously I want to make this Eevee look as cute and cuddly as possible. So that nice round bean shape, the behind ear, which is kind of the pointy part of the design, but the rest of it I want quite fluffy and circular. But yeah, so has little peats, his little feeties, little handsies, and then moving on to the face details. So obviously it would be nice to have maybe a little bit more face detail, but you know, Squishmallows have that kind of flat face with not a lot of dimension in them. So making sure it still looks good as kind of a flat, squishy bean. Moving on to the ear details. Just making sure the width between the inside and the outside of the ear is as consistent as possible as well. So I was thinking, I got some Shrinky Dink plastics and I've been playing around with how to make keychains out of those. There'll be a video soon showing off my first experience with Shrinky Dinks. And I think that these would be really cute, like custom pins, like acrylic pins with that method. with some, Posca paint markers and a pin backing. From my first trial, the paint, if you use a little bit too much of it, gets a bit chipped, a bit cracked. So I think some UV resin would seal it in really well and kind of give that nice dome shape to it. But I'm still waiting for that in the mail, so I can't get started just yet, or else they'll kind of fade and chip off, which won't be good. So just moving on to some of the other colors now that I've done the first brown layer, moving on to the darker brown for the ears. And yeah, just making sure I'm inside the lines. I don't really love the fill tool in any art program. I've heard Procreate's fill tool is good, but I don't like that it will often leave little pixels out. That's not fun for anyone. So just filling in the color of his neck fluff here, making sure I get in all the little crevices without going outside the lines. What evolutions would you want to see in this art style? Obviously I've got the first Eevee now, so what's your favorite evolution? Mine's probably Sylveon, just because the design is so cute, but if I had to pick a second one, I'd say Vaporeon. I have the shiny of Vaporeon in Pokemon Violet, and the pink is just so cute. It looks like such a cute little catfish. I think Eevees are cats, or they could be foxes. I'm not too sure, but the original Eevee looks more like a fox, but like Flareon and Espeon both look like cats. So I'm not 100% sure on that, so let me know what you think. So just finishing up the coloring here, I'm adding kind of the darker detail that's on the very innermost part of the ear. And then off camera, I will do the line art coloring. So just finishing off this detail, and here we go. We've got our Eevee Squishmallow design. And finally, last but not least, we've got the OG Tom Nook. Not the New Horizons Tom Nook, the OG. So I first played Animal Crossing Wild World when I was in primary school. I remember sitting in the back of the car, getting on my DS after school and playing it. And I think my game cartridge might have had some kind of like issue with it. Like if you shook it around, you could hear whatever was inside it. And sometimes it would freeze, and it would be my worst nightmare if my game froze and crashed, because the little guy comes and yells at you, and me not being able to spell or read very well, he'd yell and you'd have to like type the apology out, but it was never right because my spelling was bad, or like my memory was bad or something, and he would just yell for what felt like hours. I'm sure it wasn't that long, but yeah, I have some great memories playing Wild World. And then when New Horizons came out during lockdown, it was all I played. It was really nice to kind of get that nostalgic feel back of like creating the island, and there were so many cool customization options with New Horizons. I haven't played in ages though. I should probably pick it back up again, but I heard that they brought Brewster back, which is so exciting. He was definitely a favorite of mine, going getting coffee from him under the museum in Wild World. But yeah, so this is Tom Nook OG with the Nook's Cranny apron. So we're just lining some of the details here. And I know I said before that Squishmallows have quite flat faces, and I didn't want to change that, but because he is a Tanuki fox, they do have quite pointy noses, and with the colouring of that, I thought it would look better if he had a tiny little snout. Who was your favourite Animal Crossing villager? I have many favourites. Let me just think about my ranking, and I can probably give you my top 5 off the top of my head. My number 1 favourite would have to be Goldie. She was the longest running villager on my Wild World account as a kid, and I remember she sent me a letter saying that she was leaving, and I cried so hard. I loved her. I loved seeing her every day, and I've never seen her since. I didn't get her on New Horizons, but God, I loved Goldie. And then probably number 2-ish would be Lyman. He was my first villager in New Horizons, and I am Australian, if you can't tell by the accent. So having a koala as my first was definitely amazing. He is so sweet. He's a bit of a jock, but he's very cute. And then maybe Molly the duck, maybe a bit basic of me, but her design is just so cute. And when you look at her, you're just like, oh, so sweet. And then because I do really like cats, probably Tangy, the orange cat, just because I find it quite comical to have a cat that has an orange for its head. I find that really sweet. And then probably Zucker. When I got him on my New Horizons island, I just couldn't say no. A little takoyaki octopus, very cute. But yeah, so I'm just doing the colors for our little Tom Nook here. I've always kind of hated Tom Nook from Wild World. He works you hard at the beginning of the game in Wild World. Maybe it was because I was a kid and I didn't really like doing chores, but him sending you around to earn money in your little uniform just felt a bit demeaning. But it builds good character. So our little Tom here with his little apron. And then I'll be moving on to his eye patch, not his eye patch, his like face markings. And then with Tom Nook's design, he has a few gradients on him. So I didn't do gradients in my last 2 squishes, as you saw. So we're going to do that for his nose, chest, and tail, which will be coming up. So just finishing the basic coloring for him, and then moving on to some of these gradients. So I use the blend tool here just because it's quite small sections, and I can get a nice gradient with that. So his chest doesn't have a lot of space with the apron there, but assuming if this was real, you'd be able to take the apron off, hopefully. Maybe it has like a little clasp to latch onto his back so that when it is on, it doesn't slide off. And then finally doing his tail, which is very cute. And yeah, so that's my 3 dream Squishmallows. If you would like to see one of your dream Squishmallows or a fan-made Squishmallow or something of the like, please leave a comment. I'd love to draw more in this style. I think they're just so adorable. And I'm hoping to turn them into little keychains or stickers for myself, just so I can stick them all over my notebook or my set of keys, etc. So yeah, that is my finished Tom Nook with the line art coloured in. And then these are the 3 Squishmallows we drew today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you have a really amazing day.